We're loving and hating and making scenes. Now we just see everything we believe.
Hello, what is going on, guys? And welcome to part 2 of, or segment 2 of for returning Yu-Gi-Oh players, part 2, for Banlist changes. Now, quick reminder for you guys, this is a segment for just anyone who has just been out of the game since Master Rule 4's inception. I do believe this is important because Master Rule 4 has fundamentally changed the game the most in terms of its mechanics, how things are done, how things are played, all of that, it's changed the most, so this is really important. So where we left off last time, we left off at the ban list changes of November 6th of 2017. Now, Spirals are still the best deck and all that good stuff, so we're going to go ahead and fast forward onto February 2nd, and so they only hit the Spirals with Spiral Resort going to 1, and that was just enough to curb the deck down to the power level of other decks. So we did kind of skip the ban a little bit there, but it's important to know why these cards are getting hit and the formats that cause these hits. What were the best decks, what was being highly abused, things like that. So Spiral Resort to 1, again, its search ability wasn't once per turn. It protected all your spirals from targeting. It's pretty good. So now let's backtrace and go to the ban cards again. Now this ban list seemed to have done a lot at really just going after all the token generators, or all the free advantage generators, if you will. So we're gonna go ahead and look at 3 different cards. Well, 2 actually. We got Gofu and Level Leader for starters. Gofu and Level Leader, again, I said in the last video, Gofu, just 3 free bodies, no normal summon, no drawbacks, except you just need to control no monsters and drop this to the board. Spirals were abusing it because it was the best way to make Ningirsu, and Ningirsu at the time was the best way to out a Spiral Sleeper equipped with a Last Resort, so you couldn't target it, you couldn't destroy it by card effects. And Ningirsu is non-targeting, non-destruction removal, and it was really, really free. Not to mention, if your opponent did anticipate an Ningirsu coming out, then they'd have to use a sleeper, on demand, which Gofu was incredibly good at baiting out interruptions in general without committing the normal summon. You could do all of this and then normal summon afterwards. Yeah, Gofu was pretty ridiculous. Next, Level Leader. I don't really understand. I still to this day don't understand Level Leader because high level decks weren't really doing all that hot, and I wholeheartedly agreed that Level Leader was, even though it's a broken card, especially Master Rule 4, since, you can link with it, I believed it was just what the high level decks needed, like the Blue Eyes decks and the Cosmo decks, and any of those other decks that play high level monsters. I believed that Level Leader was the thing that to give them the boost they needed to actually kind of keep up with the other decks, if you will. No tier 1 decks really had too many levels, like 5 or 7 or higher, to just really fully abuse Level Leader outside of Pendulums, but Pendulums had their, had an extra deck of their own. It wasn't like a generic extra deck, like Cosmos and Blue Eyes, to where you only need realistically a few cards. And the rest could just be full of links that you could use to, further support your strategy. But Level Leader is banned because, well, Link Karibo kind of broke this card a little bit, but then again, we didn't even have Link Karibo legal at the time of this card being banned, so I don't know. Next 2 cards, we got Double Iris and Performing Pal Skullcrobat Joker. These 2 cards were, the weirdest to me because they were preemptive hits. These got hit, I think, 3 days before Extreme Force got released, which was going to release the Pendulum support card, Heavy Metaphors Electromite. And, that probably would have taken Pendulums way over the top, but none of us knew this at the time. We kind of scratched our head and we were just thinking, well, why would they do this now? At least wait till Electromite comes out, see what the deck does, and then, you can hit it. But, come to find out, surprise, surprise, Pendulums were still the best deck, even after these preemptive hits. But I would have liked to see, Pendulums at full power for some time, because I don't, the thing about me is, I don't like when decks come out neutered, I feel that every deck deserves to be played at their fullest potential, at full power, at some point, regardless if it's for a short period of time or not. Even if there is a need for an emergency ban list, at the very least, people got to play the decks that they were anticipating on playing and the cards that they were anticipating on playing as well. So, all in all, I believe every single deck should be able to be played at full power, because nobody wants to, get highly excited and anticipated for a deck's arrival, only for certain cards to just get hit and you played down a neutered version of the deck that you are wanting to play. So, even if it means emergency ban lists, after a couple weeks, it's better than not being able to play the deck you want to play at full power at all. So, that's it for that. Next we have, my favorite ban of all time, and it's a little biased on my part, but that's Max C. Max C, as I've said many times, and it sounds really, really weird, but it doesn't belong in any format that's remotely fast, because the faster the format, the more game-breaking a card like Max C is, and the more game-deciding it is, the more broken it is, and it just wins games by itself. Yeah, the 2017 Nats champion even said Max C is the best card in the game, and I wholeheartedly agree with them, because Max C does too much. Just drawing cards are absolutely free because your opponent is playing the game is pretty absurd, pretty degenerate, and a lot of people will immediately start referencing the OCG. Oh, they have 3 Max Cs, and they're fine. Well, surprise, surprise, no, they're not fine. In fact, if you knew anything about the people in the OCG actually hate Max C. They really detest the card, and they wanted it banned for years, because the card is just that strong. It's just that degenerate, and it's just that game-breaking, to where it's just, even if both players had the card in their hand, it still isn't a fair fight, because the person going first will always lose to the person going second, because that person that's going second has the battle phase. So it doesn't matter if, the player going first had the Max C, if it's, it was 2018, and if your opponent had game, they have game. Regardless of what you draw, they have game on board, and they can just kill you immediately. And Max C just promoted unnecessary and unhealthy, undeserved OTKs. For that very reason. Joel and Lockbird is kind of getting to that point, but, so far, not a lot of decks are doing too much drawing and searching, but there are formats where that card will just automatically win you the game, but we're not talking about that. That's not on any ban list at the moment. Hopefully it will be, though. But anyway, that's it for the ban cards. There's one more ban card, but I want to loop it in with another card. Next limited card, we have Grinder Golem. Now, Grinder Golem is another head-scratcher to me, because we still don't have, even at the time of recording this video, we still do not have Security Dragon. Now, my guess was that this card was going to get hit the moment Security Dragon got confirmed for the TCG, because Security Dragon was a very, very important piece to the Grinder Golem combo. Without that Security Dragon in the equation, Grinder Golem wasn't very abused, and it wasn't even seeing play, and it got limited anyway. So, what am I talking about? So, with Grinder Golem, reading the card, you would summon 2 tokens and summon it to the opponent's side of the field in defense position. That was not once per turn, but you don't have a normal summon on top of that. So, what you do is you would summon 2 tokens on your field, summon a Grinder Golem in Zone 2 or Zone 4, link the token into Link Spider, Link Karibo, whatever, just 2 of the same types, and then link them both into Akashic Magician, and when it's summoned, you just bounce any monster that it's pointing to, and its arrows are straight up and down, so you would just bounce the Grinder Golem back to your hand. Then you would summon 2 more tokens and summon Grinder Golem once again, and you would link those 2 tokens into Security Dragon. And Security Dragon also had arrows up and down, and you would have it co-linked with Akashic Magician down below. And if it was co-linked, you can target a monster on the opponent's field and just return it to the hand. So you would rebounce the Grinder Golem. That's one of the most important parts of the combo, because you would summon the Grinder Golem a 3rd time with 2 more tokens, and you would make Firewall Dragon underneath the Security Dragon. And you would end up using Akashic's Magician, calling a certain card to excavate and attempt to hit it and add it to the hand, whatever. But Firewall would also use this effect to bounce the Grinder Golem. And then you would summon 2 more tokens, and then you would use those 2 tokens in either the Akashic or the Security Dragon, whichever one you left on the field, and summon a 2nd Firewall Dragon, triggering the 1st Firewall Dragon to summon all monsters from your hand, and at that point you can start going off. And, but without that Security Dragon, you didn't have the 2 extra tokens you needed to really perform that combo. So that's why it was so confusing that Grinder Golem got limited, because without Security Dragon, you can't really do that combo. But they went ahead and limited the card anyway. So, the last 2 cards on this list, we have one of my favorites, Dandelion being banned, and Firewall Dragon getting limited from 3 copies. Yeah, both of these cards in tandem were pretty ridiculous. Dandelion, again, just free token generators. Doesn't even have to be on the field. It just has to be sent to the graveyard, so you can Foolish Burial, send it, and just get 2 free bodies and just start linking up the ladder. And yeah, with Firewall Dragon, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and showcase a video as to why these 2 cards are, why Firewall is limited and why Dandelion was banned. So, yeah, so if you're a player who loves to play combo decks, and you missed out at a time when Dandelion was legal and Firewall Dragon was at 3, you missed out on a great time. So those who love combo decks would have had an excellent time playing with 3 Firewall Dragons. 3 Firewall Dragons was pretty awesome for the combo players, of course. I myself play combo decks. So that's it for the February 2nd ban list of 2018. Now we move on to May 21st of 2018. That took a while. A lot of us were kind of sick of the format, and a lot of us also loved the format because it was one of the most diverse formats we've had. To where 13 different decks could realistically top Pendulums didn't take up that much of the top cut, and 2 Dracos didn't take that much of the top cut. 60 card decks were still viable, and all of that good stuff. So we got quite a few ban cards. Of course, Pendulums were the best deck because of Heavy Metal Force Electromite, and they abused quite a few cards. So Astrograph Sorcerer was the first card to get the X and get banned, because that card is not once per turn. It can keep, if you can keep putting it in your hand and you can keep using Electromites, because its effect also wasn't once per turn, you could keep revealing it, summoning it, and searching more cards, and just building up a massive board and just building up even more card advantage. And it was a level 7. Highly, highly abusable. It got banned for a pretty good reason. Next is Masterpiece, because if Pendulums get hit, you have to hit the second best deck at the same time. Otherwise, True Dracos would have had absolutely no competition whatsoever. And Masterpiece was already just an insane card that was it just took True Dracos over the top. They not only played a bunch of Floodgates in their deck, they not only have 20 draw and search cards in their deck, but they also have monsters that, are just unaffected by, anything you want that can pop cards, as quick effects. Pretty ridiculous. Kind of glad that card's gone. Not only the diehard 2 Draco fans really miss it, but, that's just me being biased on my part. So, moving on. We got a Phoenician Cluster of Amaryllis. Again, another head scratcher of a hit, because Aromatherapy Jasmine wasn't even confirmed yet. And in fact, it didn't even get confirmed until a couple months ago in Dual Power. So, I figured that maybe they won't hit this card until Aromatherapy Jasmine gets confirmed. But again, they hit the card before we even had any kind of confirmation on our Plant Link Monsters release. And I don't know, it's just more preemptive hits. I'm not a big fan of preemptive hits because, I'm in favor of actually using, cards like this, not like Phoenician Cluster, but just using cards like Grinder Golem and things, and like other decks. If you can innovate, with cards like these, before certain cards that break them wide open get released, then I feel that you should be rewarded for innovating, or making something happen with cards like Grinder Golem before Security Dragon or before Aromatherapy Jasmine's release. So that's my 2 cents on that. Next, we got Supreme King starring Venom. Just more independent Nightingale shenanigans that happened. Tyrant's Neptune ended up getting banned for its sins. But at the same time, Starving Venom was it's a pretty ridiculous card. It enabled itself to be summoned through Contact Fusion. So at the time, if you went for a Pendulum summon of multiple monsters and your opponent had an Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, they can nuke, any of the cards, book all your Pendulums down. But since Contact Fusion doesn't care if they're face up or face down, you can just Contact Fuse away, summon Starving Venom. You can copy any card or any monster on either player's fields or either player's graveyard. So you just copy Conductor Tyranno and then just kind of punish your opponent for it. But that wasn't really the main reason. The main reason was just copying Independent Nightingale twice, because Pendulums could put 4 level 4 dark spellcaster Pendulums on the field easily. And even at the end of the day, even if they had banned Nightingale, at the same time, Starving Venom was just acting as 3 more copies of Electromite. So, having 6 Electromites in your deck sounds pretty absurd, which it kinda is. So, yes, Starving Venom had to get the axe. Next, this kind of confused me, but Ancient Fairy Dragon also got banned. Ancient Fairy Dragon, I don't know. I don't think field spells at the time were that prominent and that dominant, because again, Pendulums were the best deck at that time. Pendulums were the best deck, True Dracos was the second best deck, but True Dracos didn't play Ancient Fairy Dragon. So, this is a real head scratcher to me, and I figured Ancient Fairy wouldn't get hit until Needle Fiber gets confirmed. But Needle Fiber still hasn't, got confirmed to this day. So, Ancient Fairy Dragon is a hit I will never understand, because I don't believe that there was any really, field spells that were highly abusing Ancient Fairy Dragon, let alone, the ones that were really, really topping events. I feel like all that they did to hit, hitting Ancient Fairy Dragon was hitting all the rogue decks, because I know ABCs needed this card. FAs were a really promising deck at the time, but Ancient Fairy Dragon kind of had to stay legal. But that kind of got banned, so I'm not sure if Gem Knight FTK used Ancient Fairy or not. I'd have to go back and, check the profiles to see whether or not Gem Knight FTK was using it. But, I don't know, Ancient Fairy Dragon was a sad hit to a lot of players, especially a lot of rogue decks. And, Spirals was one, Trickstars was another. These are all just roguish, tier 2, tier 3 decks that really, really needed the Ancient Fairy. There wasn't really any tier 1 decks using Ancient Fairy Dragon, so I don't understand the ban for it. And, you know, even now I still miss the card. But, you know, remember, Ancient Fairy Dragon was also part of the 11 field spells dilemma, to where, you know, with 3 set rotations, 3 terraformings, you know, Gateway to Chaos, Oracle, Zephyr, 3 your own field spell. Another way to, you know, get around that was, you know, Desrudo and making Ancient Fairy Dragon to blow up all field spells, so you can still activate your own field spells, so you're not locked under set rotation. You know, that was another cool interaction there. So, you know, very, very missed card, even to this day. So next we got Argent Chaos Force, because there was another pseudo Pendulum FDK in the form of, you know, Utopic Zexal. It was very, very easy to turbo it out. You can get it out of your graveyard after you foolish it. It was pretty ridiculous. Alright. Next, Grass Looks Greener. Another hit that I wasn't really on board with, because I did like the fact that 60 card decks were viable. And surely now 60 card decks kind of took a back seat and kind of fell to the wayside the moment Grass did get banned. But I think Grass had to get banned, because I do believe decks that did play Grass extended matches, you know, pretty lengthy, and the new time rules at the time were going into effect. I truly believe that Grass got banned specifically, you know, for the new time rules. The new time rules were going to go into effect, and I do believe, you know, I think Grass decks did kind of extend matches. I think a lot of matches went into time with decks that did involve Grass looks greener. So that might have been the reason why it got banned. I don't know, but I do miss 60 card decks actually being viable. But they started being viable again the moment Dangers started debuting. But that's another can of worms by itself. So that's it for all the banned cards. Next we got a limited card in Master Diamond. That was the only card that was limited. Master Diamond was just to curb the Gemini FTK, because you needed to make multiples of these to copy Lapis Lazuli in the graveyard. And, you know, Lapis Lazuli can only be summoned once per turn. So that was the reason behind having multiple Master Diamonds. But surprise, surprise, there's a way to cycle Master Diamond and go right back into it. So it didn't really do too much to the Gem 9 FTK, it just made it not as consistent. But, you know, Nightmare Unicorn was a card, so it didn't really matter too much. You know, just link off your Phantom Quartz and another monster, make Unicorn, put the Master Diamond back in the extra deck, and just go back into it and just burn once more. So, yeah, there's that. So that's it for the these 2 ban lists, guys. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on these. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on the head scratcher cards I went over. I'm talking about Grinder Golem getting hit really early, the Finishing Cluster getting hit really early, the Ancient Fairy Dragon was a head scratcher because, again, I don't think any tier 1 decks were playing it. And yeah, Grass was another one. So yeah, that's it for this, guys. Stick around for part 3. You wouldn't want to miss it. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. This is J Money, and I am signing out.